Hey guys, and welcome to another brand new video. In this video, we're gonna go just being really sad that Red Lobster is gone, man. Like, we got a lot of things to go talk about throughout this video. I don't know why I'm making this on my channel. If you guys probably know, I am a big fan of like stock stuff, financial stuff, and kind of the inner workings. Like, I'll look at crypto, I'll look at stocks, I'll look at the Fed, I'll look at CPI. You know, I invest, I mutual funds, index funds, retirement, all that type of good stuff. And if you guys are not big investors, whether it's on games, I know some people have even bought like Square Enix stock with it dropping down, Microsoft stock, Sony stock, or whatever it might be. Even if you guys aren't the most interested, well, what happens in the stock and the company profitability and all that affects if the company even stays around. And one thing to know is Red Lobster is not doing good. Now, I want to know, like, before we kind of do like the deep dive of the video of what's going on with Red Lobster, why it's pretty much gone zone, why we're crying internally that it's not doing so good. I want to know if you guys ever care about stocks or even care about Red Lobster as a whole. Because I think as of right now, there's been a big kind of uplift in different chains. Things like even like Chili's right now is on the block. Casual fast food eating, such as like, say like a Chipotle or Qdoba or even like a Five Guys, where it's relatively quick food, but it's still somewhat good service. You're not at the same level of McDonald's. So right now, Red Lobster's in that kind of weird spot where who really goes there? Why do you go there? And that's probably why they're losing a lot of money. So throughout this video, we're going to talk about what happened with Red Lobster, talk about the fact that as of today, they're now diving into Chapter 11 bankruptcy. And if you guys like these types of videos, let me know. And if not, then dude, I don't know. I just felt like talking about Red Lobster. So I'm sure a lot of you guys know about them. Cheddar Bay biscuits, some good old food over there, some random weird kind of somewhat gloomy lobster tanks in Red Lobsters. Whenever I used to go there as a kid, number one, I'd eat 7 biscuits. Number two, I would probably always go and just poke my little finger on the Red Lobsters and kind of see like what they're doing. I always kind of felt a bit sad because they're kind of just sitting there lifeless and, well, anyway. But when it comes to Red Lobster, they have had a lot of big issues. Right now, we've had the official confirmation that they have filed voluntary Chapter 11 petitions to basically see if they can strengthen their financial position, maximize money for the stakeholders, and kind of see if it can stay in business. If you guys remember, I was in a really big bankruptcy saga. I was in like 4 different cryptocurrency bankruptcies, so I learned a lot about bankruptcy itself. Chapter 11 is mainly like the company is still viable. It can still make money, but it needs to be restructured. So like eliminate debts or basically go into bankruptcy and then kind of be like, hey, we owe $50 million. Let's try to get this out and pay what we can and settle stuff out and basically sell off like maybe additional assets to pay off debts. It's like, hey, we can go and keep the company running, but instead of having 1,000 stores, we sell off a lot of land, property, assets, whatever, and we now have 300. We keep the profitable ones. We can maybe start from ground zero and go from there. And so it's not like the company's gone forever, but right now we've been seeing a lot of different types of closures happening. There's a lot of stores shutting down, and they lost a lot of money. And this makes a little bit sad because when I was a kid, I did really like Red Lobster. Like, Red Lobster was a nice staple spot. I have not been to one in a very long time, nor do I really have the interest to. I feel like a lot of other restaurants nowadays do slightly better. Red Lobster is always like shrimp. Like, they had a shrimp deal, which was actually apparently horrible, and they lost a lot of money with some big intricacies we'll talk about here. But like, why do you go to Red Lobster? Yeah, their biscuits are great. Yeah, but what about the food, the main entrees? Like a lobster roll at this point would be like $40, $50 for a proper good dish. If I want to get a good steak, I'll go almost anywhere else. If I want to have a burger, I'd go almost anywhere else. And I'm not usually the biggest seafood guy for seafood chains. And once again, this is like the level of like a Chili's, or if you want to go a little bit fancier, because they do own it, I believe, like an Olive Garden. Or it could still be there. I'm not going to hate on it. Like, sometimes it hits the spot, but I'm not going to be the average day goer. I feel like Red Lobster never really kind of found its stride as a restaurant. It's had its ups and downs, but whenever they have their ups, such as these really crazy seafood deals that basically bankrupt the company, then it's not that good. So basically, there has been a lot of big issues with Red Lobster. Number one is that they've had 5 different CEOs throughout the past few years. If you guys ever try to run a business, you guys understand that that is a struggle. That is not good. But as well, they also lost a lot of money. So they were trying to go do like this unlimited lobster deal. And because of that, apparently, they try to make that like a $20 endless shrimp permanent menu item is there all the time. And that was, I think, the start of their downfall. Where they basically cost them apparently $11 million. And they also had a really, really big like connection with another basically like a shrimp farmer. And they ended up like gouging up their prices, had really bad quality control. And at the end of the day, Red Lobster became too reliant with them to keep their, say, like their endless shrimp on their menu, that they were losing a lot of money. They were overpaying. They were just it was too much of like a monopoly for them, and they just couldn't get out underneath the deal. So basically, they should have removed that deal. Like, people were eating it up the storm. I was seeing people on TikTok farming. It was crazy. But as well, they've also had a lot of different CEOs. And typically CEOs are kind of like the figureheads of how they go and change out the company and how you make the company better. So if you have one person saying we should go at endless shrimp, and then that person leaves, the guy who's coming in is being like, why do we have endless shrimp? Like, it didn't make any sense. But there's also been some other bigger issues too. Because if you've kind of seen heard the story about McDonald's, where McDonald's was always kind of like they were buying the land, and they were essentially leasing the land back to itself, and they made a lot of money from land ownership. And that's what Red Lobster used to do. They used to actually go and buy the individual land that they were making their stores on, and as they were doing that, they still kept the appreciation of the land. They get to go and keep the profit of the land. But at a certain point, due to all the mismanagement and selling off the assets and changing hands and companies buying and selling it, they actually end up having to go and sell most of the land they had. And I'm sure if you guys know, you guys are watching, there's like homes and like, I'll probably just use your house. House is the best example. Typically, there's a good appreciation over time on land and land ownership, especially in populous areas like commercial areas or in cities or around developing towns or like, you know, those like little strip lines where there's like 18 different restaurants and like a car dealership and all that. That's actually worth good money. It's good business locations. It's prime real estate. And that's what they call it. Prime real estate. And the fact that they had to keep on leasing out the land that they were selling completely destroyed Red Lobster. It was gone because guess what? Instead of keeping the appreciation money and also keeping the cost basis down and keeping like, you know, your net cash flow like good, they are now then having to release that, and they basically scheme the system. Like, let's say you owned 1,000 properties with 1,000 lots, and then they go and sell those lots, and they make that same place go and lease back to that same company. A little bit convoluted, but basically the people who were in charge of Red Lobster and working these deals kind of like siphoned money off of Red Lobster and basically made sure they weren't able to go and have a positive cash flow along with all these other deals. So Red Lobster got destroyed, and it's sad because I don't want to say like Red Lobster is like super iconic, I love it, but I mean, I ate there. I liked Red Lobster. There's like a spot for it. Like, people vibe it. They got some good food on occasion, but basically a lot of higher costs, also in combination with inflation. And most people usually combine Red Lobster as more of like a casual food, like in the Olive Garden, the Applebee's, the Chili's level, rather than, let's say, a Cheesecake Factory level, which is a little smidgen higher. So it's not quite Chipotle. It's a little bit better than Chipotle, but not quite like Cheesecake Factory, so it's in that deadlock. And usually seafood is more on the premium side, expensive side, regardless. Like, think a nice tuna, think a really good fish, think like, you know, lobster, crab, like legs, all of those. So it's kind of hard to hit that lower clientele for what they're expecting to a higher level of price. Like a $50 lobster tail is probably not going to be the end-all be-all that people really want when it comes to Red Lobster. And they're saying that's a lot. Like, there's a lot of small things that happen. Like, this was not the biggest thing. General Mills also had some issues too as well. Like, all the big old school executive people were having issues. Like, they just didn't know what to really do. It wasn't actually that big. And it was starting to fall behind back in the day, where even in 2008, it basically got eclipsed by Olive Garden. And that's a bigger issue too, because like there's others like spots like Longhorn Steakhouse, Capitol Grill, Yard House, or whatever. But at the same exact time, Red Lobster just kind of never got its stride. Kind of think things like Lon John Silver's. And over time, they kept on closing more and more stores over and over and over. And then it just sucks. Like, just a lot of people are not happy with how it went. So they are hopefully expecting more people to go and show up and see how these stores are still there, but they have to kind of minimize the cost, cut back on like these endless shrimp deals, because at the end of the day, like, they're just not making money. So as I mentioned, they are now officially in bankruptcy. The company itself will most likely still be around, but they lost a lot of money. Like, they have to somehow find outside investors or somehow go and close down and reorganize a lot of stuff and try to clear out debt. And we're not really sure exactly if it's going to work or not. But right now, this is going to be a very long process. I believe you can still go to Red Lobster as a company, because once again, Chapter 11, it still does get funding, and it still will be able to take out loans and expand their operations or whatever. But the future of Red Lobster is probably going to be not so good. So give me your thoughts and comments on everything down below. I appreciate you guys all very much for watching. We're probably live up on Twitter and Twitch, and I appreciate you guys all for existing.